What's up, guys? Welcome to our episode of SSP Live. Today, we are going to be talking about kind of just wrapping up the season a little bit. And just to give you guys a heads up for those of you who are here early, I know we're a little bit later, but just some scheduling issues. We had to push it back a little bit, but try to keep it on time for you guys. This will be our last show for a couple weeks. We're going to take a couple weeks off as the season ends. The NFL season just wrapped up. Um, but we will be back for some kind of more specifically timed shows, but we'll get a little bit more into that at the end. But just want to let you guys know, for those of you who catch the first part of the show, that we will not be live next week, but we might be live in 2 weeks. We'll let you guys kind of know. Just look on Facebook, Instagram, and everywhere that you follow us on YouTube, finding our podcast on Spotify and Apple. And just look for an announcement there on all of our social media platforms, and we'll tell you guys when we're going to go live. It'll still be the same time on Tuesday nights that we go live. It just won't be every week now that the season's over. But we definitely are excited to still keep our show going in the off season. As we approach the draft and March Madness and the Masters and things like that as they kind of come around the corner. And then maybe perhaps we'll take a little bit of a hiatus in the summer as sports kind of dies down, depending on what it looks like with the COVID ramifications. But yeah, let's jump right into it. Obviously we're going to talk about the Super Bowl. So that's the main point of conversation today that we need to touch on, and hopefully you guys were able to catch our pregame show. So thank you for joining us. I know we had a good viewership as we were live on set, and Dan was in PA.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, we titled this segment Super Bowl 55 takeaways. And really, I mean, depending on how you looked at it, there was any number of things you could have taken away from it. But something that Trav and I were very in agreement on was just the lack of preparation it looked like from the Kansas City offensive side, and mainly with the coaching staff. So Trav, why don't you touch on some of your takeaways first?
Yeah, it came down to one kind of a coaching battle for me, and that was Andy Reid versus Todd Bowles. And Andy Reid lost that battle, obviously. I blame, I mean, yeah, I blame him for them not being prepared. I blame him for terrible, terrible game management and timeout management. Specifically, I'll get into that more. His ridiculous decision to call a timeout and then double down and call the second timeout, basically allow that second touchdown. That plus the penalties that were given to the Bucks. But it just came down to Todd Bowles and his plan versus Andy Reid. Maybe you want to say, well, Eric Bieniemy, but just as far as I'm concerned, Andy Reid runs that offense. He's not calling the plays on a play-by-play basis, but he's the offensive guy. It's his system, it's his preparation, it's his game plan that's going to be installed under, essentially what they're going to do. So his lack of ability to do what they did all year, which was, yes, the O-line was going to be an issue. Everybody's worried about it. Eric Fisher went out, but this has been a mix and match O-line. They've already been missing their right tackle since week 6. It hasn't slowed them down. They played better defenses than this, and it hasn't slowed them down. They've been mix and match all year. I don't understand why all of a sudden now it looked like they couldn't figure out a way to block them. So starting out the first 3 drives, talking about the game plan and preparation, the first 3 drives, I don't know if that was his attempt to protect his O-line, but they just ran gimmick screen after gimmick screen after gimmick screen that didn't work at all. Instead of putting the ball in the best player in football's hands, you go gimmick screen basically plays nonstop for the first 3 drives, which is in large part is why they end up being down as much as they were after 3 drives. So finally, the last drive they had before the half, they put it in his hands and they put a decent drive together, again, settle for a field goal. But, I understand the pass rush and all that, but because of their slow goings early on, which obviously it was slow goings the whole game, but because of specifically the slow goings early on, they allowed themselves to get in a hole, which in the second half allowed the Bucks defense pass rush to just pin their ears back and know that they're passing every play. So then it got even worse in terms of the protection. Obviously, the protection was an issue. Give the Bucks D-line credit. The offensive line of the Chiefs, that's the injuries, that was real, and that was part of it. But Andy Reid's inability to prepare for this game, we've seen these gaps from Andy Reid in the past, which is why he hasn't been able to get it done until he had Patrick Mahomes. He's got his head blown up a little bit from a lot of people about how good a coach he really is. I think this put us down to reality about his big gaps, and the reality is that he's not in the stratosphere of some of these great coaches that we've seen, and maybe even the best coaches right now. I specifically want to touch on the end of the first half. There's 43 seconds left. Okay, at the end of the play the Bucks ran, the first play the Bucks ran at the end of that half, there's 43 seconds left. Okay, so you're thinking, all right, they call timeout, which I thought was dumb. to me, it's like, what's the best that can happen? You get the ball back because they still had 2 more plays to run. Even if you go timeout, timeout, there's still going to be 35 seconds. After the punt, there's going to be 30 seconds at best. So if you're lucky, you can get a field goal. But there's no chance other than a miracle to score a touchdown. At best, you can get a field goal. What do? You time out. Then that goes because it goes for 1 yard. So, okay, whatever. If there's a minute and a half, I'm like, yeah, give Mahomes an extra real possession. But 30 seconds isn't really a possession. So then they get an 8-yard run to bring it to 3rd and 1. And there's no choice. Like you don't call timeout now because 3rd and 1 is high percentage for the offense. They're probably going to get it. And now Bucks, mind you, Bucks have 1 timeout. So obviously the chances of them getting it are much better. And now with them 1 timeout, you're essentially giving them a timeout. Now you're putting a realistic chance that they could get in a field goal. And if the refs help them any more than they already had, which they end up doing, they're going to have a chance at a touchdown. So he doubles down and makes an even dumber mistake and calls that timeout. What happens? 2 terrible calls later, the Bucks are in the end zone. Now, the calls hurt, but Andy Reid put them in position for those calls to be able to be had. If he just lets the clock run out, the Bucks, you could tell by the Bucks going run. They were more than happy to let that possession run out and go 14-6 into the locker room. That's a totally different game potentially. I'm not saying I think the Chiefs would have won, but it allowed the game plan in the second half had to be pass. That allows the Bucks pass rush to get even more at it. So terrible play calling, terrible preparation. I lay the blame squarely at the feet of Andy Reid for the result to me.
Yeah, and
when I look at it as
just to go into that, like, I mean, I literally, as we're sitting there watching the game, I look at Trav when there's time, and he says, they better not call timeout here. And I was like, dude, they're going to call timeout, and exactly what happened in Green Bay is going to be the same thing. They're going to throw a deep ball, they're going to get a PI call, and then they're going to score a touchdown. And you know what happened? That's exactly what happened. And it's just ridiculous that Andy Reid wouldn't take his losses, knowing that, like you said, he has the best quarterback, and you get the ball at half. You're only down 8 points. Take it into the half at 14-6. There is no need to try to steal points when you've already been playing a close fight game.
As much as they were dominated in the first half, 14-6, it's like, all right, we could have been worse. It's doable. We have to totally shift the second half, and it was doable. And then when that touchdown at the end of the half, it was kind of like the end of the Green Bay game. Yeah, Green Bay made a game of it, but that was kind of like, that was it. That was it.
Dan, what were some of your takeaways?
Yeah. So probably the biggest takeaway for me is I thought that the Tampa Bay defense had the potential to do what they did, but nobody had done it to this point in the season. And really, nobody has really made Mahomes kind of look the way that he looked. Now, I don't want to act like I don't understand that the offensive line was banged up, but it kind of goes with what Trav said. It didn't look to me like Andy Reid had any, he had no real desire. They weren't going to run the football. The ball was in Mahomes' hand the entire game, which you would say, well, okay, that makes sense. But if you have a banged up O-line, maybe try and run the ball a little bit, and it wasn't until the second half that he started running these quick ball plays, but it was too late.
I wanted to interject real quick and I'll let you finish off. But because I was going to say in the second half, when they were less likely to really where it would make less sense to run the ball when you're down 2 scores in the second half, or really 3 scores, they were down pretty quick. They mixed some draws and some runs, and it was successful. But because they got themselves in that hole, they couldn't do that enough. And if they would have run instead of the gimmick screen, because like you said, they put it in Mahomes' hands, but the first 3 drives, technically it was in his hands, but it was all designed screen. So that's not really putting it in your quarterback hand. So I would have rather seen the traditional run early on, and maybe it would have gotten better and they wouldn't have been in that hole. They could have kept going and they might have had something, but go ahead.
Yeah. So, but one of the things that was just really impressive, I think this is a game plan that not everybody, like Todd Bowles had a really good game plan. He doubled Tyreek Hill all across the field, and he has the linebackers there in Tampa. He has 2 linebackers with Devin White and Levante David, who could switch off and take on Travis Kelce. And it looked to me like for most of the game, with Tyreek Hill taken out of the game, Mahomes was looking for Kelce a lot. He was covered. Their whole offense was just really out of sync. And, I have to say that you have to give Tampa Bay's defense credit for what they did. But I do agree with you, Trav, that for whatever reason, that game plan was very lackluster. It looked to me like Andy Reid didn't believe that his offense was multi-dimensional and that there was only one dimension to it, and it just failed. And when it didn't work, he didn't really know what to do. I mean, in the second half, he started running the draw play, but I mean, at that point, maybe early in the game with a banged up O-line, you run the ball a little bit more, you get yourself into third and manageable situations, you maybe that's the game you need to play in the Super Bowl. And I know that's not what Andy Reid likes to do. He's never been that type of coach. He's never ran the ball. It used to drive me crazy in Philadelphia. But maybe in this situation, that's what they needed to do. Run the ball just a little bit more. It's not that Mahomes is any less of a quarterback if you run the ball more. It actually would help him out, especially with the O-line.
Well, it's funny because their offense for the first whole quarter was Patrick Mahomes scrambling for 5 and 6 yards here and there. That was literally their offense to move the ball down the field. They started all their drives in the first quarter at like the 40-yard line and had really good field position, but couldn't get touchdowns off of it. And like I said, like
right.
I agree, you give all the credit in the world to Tampa's defense. I mean, here's the deal. Like bottom line is the difference was that the Chiefs' offense just didn't move the ball. We expected the Bucs to score around 28, 30 points. Like that was what we thought their offense could do, and they did. They put up their expected points. The Chiefs just laid it down. And I feel the guy I feel most bad for is Patrick Mahomes. He's out there fighting for his life. He still was making plays that you don't usually see quarterbacks make. I mean, that throw, like everybody's throwing it everywhere on social media where he's like diving and throws it 30 yards while he's almost elbow on the ground, basically. And a guy dropped that touchdown. But what I will say to go with that is that there were some uncharacteristic drops from the Chiefs receivers too in a couple of big spots. I know you don't expect Tyreek Hill to catch that long bomb throw that hit him in the helmet that could have been a touchdown early in the game. But the Travis Kelce one on third down was a big drop that ended up killing that drive. So just a lot of little things, like you said, they were not in sync from the offense. And a lot of that just, I think, stems from just not being comfortable with what they're running.
Yeah, and let me say about the Bucs D. I know I'm sitting here saying it was about Andy Reid, but like in no way am I going to diminish what the Bucs did. And a lot of the credit to me, I'll give Bucs credit to their players too. And I already kind of gave credit to Bowles. I mean, I've been saying all year I love Todd Bowles as a defensive coordinator. Did I think he was going to come in and be able to put that preparation and think that their defensive personnel was going to be able to put that performance against the Chiefs? Heck no, I wouldn't. I don't even know if I think the 85 Bears would have put that performance up against the Chiefs. We haven't seen, it's like you said, Dan, Mahomes hasn't gone through a game where he didn't throw a touchdown or he didn't throw for at least 2 or 250. I mean, they've been talking about that this whole year. Like Mahomes, since he's been a professional, literally has never had a bad statistical game. Like he throws like maybe one pick here, I think he's thrown in 1 or 2 games where he's had 2, but he still offsets it with 2 or 3 touchdowns and 300 yards or something like that. And then we just saw him totally, and it wasn't even that he played bad, because I actually think Mahomes, I mean, he made some crazy plays just to not take sacks or to make completions out of when there was nothing, because he was, especially in the second half when they were pinning their ears back and it was desperation time. So, it's crazy that they forced that first game of Mahomes where it was like, wow, he first, and I don't even want to call it a bad game from Mahomes, but statistically it was a bad game. No touchdowns, 2 picks, and not very many yards. So, but he obviously was fighting for his life back there and scrambling the whole game. So, credit to the Bucs D. They've been up solid D all year, but to think that D, who hasn't really proven themselves, would do that to that offense, I don't think anybody expected that. We all saw a chance. There was a path to victory, as they say, in political world, for the Bucs, but I don't think anybody saw that path as 31-9 in a blowout. You know what I mean? And I know I didn't think that, and I didn't.
Only
it was
person
just
who saw that path.
So, all the credit to Todd Bowles and all the credit to that defense for doing it. But I still go back to say, there should have just been. They just weren't prepared to do what they did. I don't know if Andy Reid thought they were going to play it like Todd Bowles played it the first time, where they just let Tyreek Hill run loose. And it was more than just the pressure. In the first half, there were times where Mahomes had time to throw. Right, he was back there, and nobody was open. The coverage on the back end was just as good as what their pass rush was by taking away Kelce and Hill. And I guess it seemed like they just knew the route combinations, they knew the tendencies, and they knew the spots to get to, because it looked like they were dropping 7 a lot into more of a zone.
And did you notice they played like up on the line too? They weren't letting them get like these free releases. They played up on the line for a lot of those like third down calls.
It almost makes you wonder, like, did they have like footage of the game beforehand of the practices of the Chiefs? Who knows?
Spygate.
Perhaps we'll never know.
Brady called up his guy, his Spygate guy. I was like, hey man.
Yeah, I mean, it was, like I said, it was not a fun game to watch, honestly. I mean, I don't know.
It was beautiful.
Overall, like, I just would have wished for, even if the Bucs were to win, I wanted to see a close game. I wanted to see it go back and forth. Be one of.
I don't think anybody enjoyed that Super Bowl outside of anybody rooting for the Bucs, just as a game. Objectively as a game, it was terrible. It was terrible to watch.
Yeah, as a
what
game,
I liked about it was that it showed football is truly like the consummate team sport, because the Bucs offense, they didn't do anything special, but they didn't turn the ball over. They ran the ball extremely well. I think that was really like the big, especially in the second half. Man, they were just gashing the Chiefs defense. Brady did what he had to do. Again, he didn't turn the ball over. He got the ball in his playmakers' hands. I don't think this was his most spectacular. I definitely don't think he deserved to win MVP. I know that we all kind of think that. I would think someone on the defensive side of the ball should have got it. I think like Levante David or somebody who was covering. But it's hard to give an individual award to an entire side of the ball. That's the problem.
They would
But
have
I wish
needed. They would have
When
needed
nobody
like
has a
somebody on that
standout
line.
game, when
Somebody
no
on the
one
line
has a
would have needed
standout
2 or 3
game, the
sacks.
quarterback always gets it.
Yeah, they needed somebody
But-
on the D line to have 2 or 3 sacks. But I
Right.
mean, big credit to them because they literally, like, if you watch that game, like it seemed like they never sent more than 4 unless it was like
No.
a big long third down and they were just crazy. But they got there. I mean, I don't think anybody could have expected that the offensive line deficiencies and then that paired with how tenacious the D line was going to be this bad.
Yeah, I mean, my thing, and like I keep beating a dead horse with it, but if we would have seen the Chiefs, have their whole starting line and O line intact like the whole year, and then they lost 2 of their best O linemen in the playoffs, then it would have been like, okay, can they do it? But we've seen it be mix and match all year. The only difference now was what it has been for the last like few weeks was, they lost the left tackle, which is the most important spot on the O line. But Eric Fisher's not like an all pro. He's a solid left tackle. But is he the difference to where they played that bad? That's where I look at it and I say, no, I don't let them off the hook by just saying, well, if that wouldn't have happened, they probably would have. Like, no, they didn't game plan it right. They didn't run the right plays. They didn't adjust at halftime when they saw what the Bucs were doing, and it's on the coaching staff, and it falls at Andy Reid.
I do think before we switch over to some other things and kind of wrap it up, I do think it is interesting to note that, I told you, Trav, about how Andy Reid had like all of the O line practicing at different positions. I wonder if that ended up being, almost like a deficit for them, like kind of getting them uncomfortable with where they needed to be in certain positions because they were practicing all these other positions instead of just sticking with what they had.
Yeah, and I also don't know if the whole car accident with Britt Reid had anything to do with it.
I was gonna say that.
Fire your son. That kid probably never deserved that job. He's had a history of being a bonehead. Yeah. Shouldn't have even been on the staff. And if that had anything to do with it, then.
So Saturday night, moving to some other stuff. Saturday night, obviously, we had the NFL honors, which was something to kind of get you excited about before the Super Bowl. A couple of the things were pretty obvious. I think everybody knew Aaron Rodgers was going to win MVP. You had Alex Smith with the comeback player of the year, which is funny enough. There was one voter who actually voted for Big Ben to win comeback player of the year. I don't know who it was, but I did see that it was 49 votes for Alex Smith and 1 for Big Ben, which is kind of ridiculous. But one that I was specifically bothered by is and it's more so I'm more bothered with the system of it, is that you got a guy like TJ Watt, and I know you can say I have the Steelers bias, but when you look at the stats, it's hard to look at those stats and compare them and not feel like he was robbed, not only last year but even this year, and giving it to Aaron Donald for 3 years. And like I said, I'm not taking anything away from Aaron Donald. He's a great player. I get it. He's the best defensive lineman in the game, but I don't know, at some point, when are you going to give respect to the guy? What does he have to do to earn it? What else does he need to do besides lead every statistical category? I just don't know what else there is to do. And how much merit do you put into these awards, really?
Well, yeah, I think the NFL, I think this whole weekend, I feel like the NFL just really sucked it up when it came to awards. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I just think they totally sucked. I don't think that Aaron Donald, statistically, when I look at the stats, I mean, JJ Watt put it all out there, and for anyone that wants to look at it, it's out there.
TJ.
Yeah, I'm sorry, JJ Watt put it out there, but TJ Watt won in every category except for forced fumbles. And JJ Watt posted on there he doesn't understand how his brother didn't win, and I completely agree with him. I'm not a Steelers fan, so that's not Steelers bias. That's just when I look at the cold hard facts, I don't understand how you make that decision, because even game tape doesn't support putting Aaron Donald ahead of TJ Watt. I think Aaron Rodgers and Patrick Mahomes being in this race for MVP. I don't think that Aaron Rodgers, personally to me, was the MVP. I think it was Patrick Mahomes. And then when we get to the Super Bowl and we talk about the MVP for the Super Bowl, I get it. You got to give it to somebody because you have the stupid award to begin with. But honestly, if you took Brady off the field, if you took Brady off the field for that game, he played well, but you could have put another, efficient quarterback back there and maybe won the game. So as much as I like to razz you all about Tom Brady and the fact that he's got 7 and just kind of stoke the fire because of your deep disdain for him, he didn't do anything special to merit being the MVP, in my opinion. He did what he does, and he's done in pretty much every Super Bowl. He doesn't turn the football over. He's efficient. He gets first downs. He doesn't necessarily lose the game for his team in most situations. So, it's just these awards suck, and I just think they probably I don't know what they do. Maybe they're contract escalators or something like that. But they just need to get rid of them because at this point, I just don't. I don't think there's any merit, and it doesn't prove anything to me.
Well, something that's like interesting to me is like I told Travis, we've seen in the past where a guy has been the most valuable player, whether it's NBA or NFL, and they'll have voter fatigue certain positions, but it's like,
right?
Why is there no voter fatigue for 3 years of Aaron Donald? Last two, he like wasn't like I don't know. Stephon Gilmore obviously won it last year before that. Like he's won 3 out of the last 4. Donald has. I don't know. I just wonder if there's like, who I would love to know who these people are that are actually the voters. Like, what gives you the merit to be a voter? Like, what are your requirements?
Right. I always want to know, like, I think it should be like, I remember when you're in school and you have a multiple choice test, but like, I think it should be what's your explanation for the reason you did that? Like, can you please explain to me, why you did what you did? I don't think there's any merit in it. You let them off the hook too easy when it's like just multiple choice. That's like in all honesty. Okay, yeah. Same thing in college football when they rank the teams,
seen in the past,
and some of these coaches will rank, have these really bizarre rankings because they're pissed off about the system. You know what I mean? Like, say why you're picking these teams. What did they show when they ranked? But nobody ever has to do that. So you know what? Some of these always lends itself to the criticism that we currently are giving it.
Yeah, I think with Aaron Donald, it's Aaron Donald. He's just viewed a different way, and rightfully so. I mean, the guy's dominant. He's going to go down as a better player probably all time. I mean, unless TJ Watt continues to just kind of keep going with next level. And I think at some point he's going to level off. He's going to go down. I mean, he's a more dominant player than TJ Watt, and I don't think you guys are arguing that point. But I think it's just you're talking about this year, who was the best defense player this year, and I think there's definitely a fair argument for TJ that was TJ Watt. Mm-hmm. And so we look at things statistically. Why did Aaron Rodgers win it? Like you said, Dan, he had significantly more touchdowns and a few less interceptions. That was basically the reason he got it. It's not that he was the quarterback that did more eye-popping things or was necessarily more valuable, or that offense he was on was better, because I don't think he was any of those three things. But at the end of the day, it was like 43-6 as opposed to Mahomes is like 36-8 or something, and it was like that's it. Because everyone was saying it was Mahomes when they were like right about the same on stats, and then at the end of the year, Rodgers just like threw a bunch more touchdowns and got like out in front a good bit, and Mahomes threw a few picks, and it kind of got his numbers up, and then it was like, oh, it's clearly Rodgers because of the stats. When he was on a 14-2 team, so you can't even play the how good of the team you're the level of play you're raising your team to, or offensively that their offense did any more than the Chiefs did. It was just his stats. And so, but then you look at it defensively, and why didn't TJ Watt get the benefit of those stat counting? So I'm with you. I just think it's the way they view Aaron Donald. He's like this unstoppable, unblockable force, and so they could give it to him every year. But then it's like, well, what about voter fatigue? Because that's always a thing in all sports where they don't want to give it to him every year. You'd think that would play in, but apparently it's not.
But
so I don't have a huge problem with it though. I'm not as irked like you guys are. I can see it either way.
Well, here's the thing: if he's really this unstoppable force, which I do, like I said, I think he's phenomenal. Obviously, he's first ballot Hall of Famer. But like, then why did he not have more sacks than TJ? And TJ played one less. I get it. Yeah,
it's different from the interior. You can't compare, and I think that's what the guys are doing too.
Yeah,
if he was an outside pass rusher, then you could look at it kind of in a box there and just say like it's an equal comparison. It's apples to apples. But this is more apples to oranges because interior wise, it's always lend itself to less sacks. Yeah. Most guys are from the edge are getting more sacks. So
here's something that like maybe I like slightly disagree. Like when I'm looking at the stats, like TJ Watt had 53 tackles, Aaron Donald has 41. So like when they run in the tackle, like Aaron Donald would seem to me like during running plays, he would have like a greater opportunity to make tackles. So
they also would say that he's doubled constantly, and TJ Watt isn't probably doubled as much.
Everybody talks about the whole double team thing, but that's a visual thing, first of all. And second of all, like that's not taking into account, like, okay, like let's count how many times TJ Watt was held when he could have got free. Like if you're going to look at double teams and like that having the effect, you have to look at things like, oh, that should have been a holding call. That should have been a holding call. Like, I don't know. I mean, I just feel like there's a lot of things, and it is what it is. I mean, bottom line, they're NFL, they're gonna do what they're gonna do, and the voters are voters for a reason. Like,
I stopped caring about these awards a long time ago, but I feel like that one had like a great deal of support for like very egregious in my opinion. Like, but for the most part, I could care too. I don't really care about those awards too often, but I feel like it's easy to say that Aaron Donald's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer because when they go there, they're going to be like 3-time Defensive Player of the Year. Well, he probably should only be a 2-time Defensive Player of the Year, and TJ Watt should be at least a 1-time. You know what I mean? So like we can say like his resume looks a certain way, but that's because they're giving it to him.
They're giving him a certain resume. Yeah.
Yep.
Honestly, I probably was more upset last year that Stephon Gilmore won it over TJ Watt. Um, but but yeah, so anyway, I mean, moving on to the offseason stuff, we've got the draft coming up around the corner. There's a lot of decisions that are going to be made for teams over the next few weeks. I think there's some March deadlines that people have to get paid if they're on rosters and things like that.
Right.
So what are you guys really looking for in this offseason? Are you kind of excited for the draft? Are you thinking more so like what's your team going to look like next year? What are certain other teams going to look like next year? Like, are we going to see Brady in the Super Bowl next year? Like, do we thinking they have a chance to get back there again?
I mean, for me personally, like I need to see how this ball is going to drop with Carson Wentz. That's really what I'm watching in the immediate future. Um, just for my own personal team, it sounds like he's going to get traded. Sounds like it's between the Colts and the Bears. Everything that I'm seeing is like it's just a matter of figuring out the compensation. The Eagles are looking to take the largest dead cap hit of all time to get rid of him, which is just crazy. So I'm watching that. I am interested to see how the Chiefs rebound and how Mahomes specifically. Great players in the past. When they've hit adversity, they come back and they're better than they've ever been. And I know we all think very highly of Patrick Mahomes. We already think that he's very good. But is there something in his game that he can particularly do to maybe improve? I know we gave a lot of blame on Andy Reid, but here's the one thing that I think he can do. I think that Pat Mahomes can get a little better at maybe like changing plays at the line, having a feel for what the game is and making changes at the line. Like we saw Ben do that this year, right? When Ben went into like the 2-minute offense or whatever and kind of started calling plays. And I think that Mahomes might need to take the reins a little bit more from the offense, and Andy Reid may need to take a little less of the reins. And so I'd love to see Mahomes grow in that way, get up to the line, be able to make the checks. I don't see him make a lot of checks, and maybe I'm missing it, but I don't see him checking a lot. He normally runs the called play. So I'll be interested to just see how Mahomes comes back from this and where he goes from here into the next season.
Yeah, I'm mainly looking at, I can think what everybody is. It's kind of this unprecedented quarterback free agent thing with, you always have some quarterbacks, but the amount of starting caliber quarterbacks that are solid, average or better starting quarterbacks being on the market this year is kind of an unheard of thing. So I want to see how all that plays out. And then I want to see what's the offseason going to be like with COVID restriction wise. What kind of offseason are we going to have? Are we going to have a real training camp? Are we going to have OTAs? Because they didn't have that this year. It was just show up at training camp, which training camp wasn't even regular training camp. It was at your NFL stadium or
Virtual
your
stuff
facility.
too.
So are we going to have a preseason? So I'm interested to see how all that plays out. Obviously, the draft will probably be virtual, but that doesn't affect in terms of who you take that much.
Right.
As long as you can get to your combine and your workouts. I haven't heard what's going to happen with the combine either. So I'm interested to see how all the stuff that is regular and wasn't last year, are we going to get back to some normalcy maybe by spring with OTAs and then training camp and preseason? And then will there be fans next year? And all that stuff developing in the offseason, and then but mainly the free agent quarterback. I'm going to see where all these guys land. Who the Colts going to get. If the Colts can get somebody proven in that team, and they're a dangerous team. So teams like that and things like that, I'd be interested to see.
Yeah, I mean, I think I read somebody shared on Twitter about how they had gotten an invite. It was a player, how they got a college player who got an invite to the combine. So I think they are doing physical combine. So that's good for them at least to kind of showcase what they can do. But yeah, I mean, this in the digital world we're living in right now, it's you just never know. And I hope fans are back. I really want to get back into a stadium.
Yep.
I hope that personally, if Ben's back next year, then I want to at least see him one more time before he's gone. Even if we don't win a Super Bowl, but yeah, there's going to be some interesting things to see in the offseason with the quarterback carousels and just some other things. But Dan, one thing that you said was kind of interesting is about the Mahomes thing is, I wonder if he has that mental to be able to be that guy at this point, this early in his career, and with a guy who the league widespread kind of views as like an offensive genius in Andy Reid / Eric Bieniemy, like would that be something that would cause conflict or that would be like frowned upon if Patrick Mahomes was
Right.
calling off a play call from one of the best offensive minds? Like, how do you say that better kind of thing? But we'll see what he does. I mean, I hope he comes back stronger and better than ever. And something that Trav said, with about how hard it is to win and because of Andy Reid, I don't necessarily know if it will be specifically because of Andy Reid that Mahomes will never win as many as Brady, but Mahomes, like we've said before, could go down as the best quarterback to play that we've ever seen, kind of thing. But he still probably won't win 7 like Brady, just because of how hard we've seen how hard it is to get there,
Yeah.
first of all, and then to win multiple Super Bowls, let alone back to back.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it'll be interesting. It has to be like a partnership with the coach and the quarterback, specifically to see that kind of happen. So Andy Reid has never done that with a quarterback in the past. He didn't do that with Donovan McNabb. He never did that with like Mike Vick. Um, Never did it with really. Alex Smith actually was. Alex Smith did do a little more checking, I felt like, at the line, but yeah, man. It'll be interesting. You don't go throughout a career without a little adversity. I mean, Brady's big adversity was when he tore his knee up and he missed the whole season. And so, every quarterback goes through it, and I fully expect that Mahomes will come back and be stronger than ever. And I think the thing that is interesting about the Chiefs is with the $40 million that Mahomes is going to get, at what point do they begin to lose some of these players that they have because they can't afford them?
Yeah.
Like, they have a window now, and it's going to be hard in the future to fit players into that.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see, but it was a good season. I mean, I think we can all agree that, barring the COVID, I don't know, mishaps or things that kind of mess with some scheduling and things like that, nothing really affected the outcomes of the overall season as a whole. Obviously, some games were affected. There were some teams that lost games that might have had a chance to win had they not had COVID issues with their rosters and with scheduling and stuff like that. But overall, it ended up being a pretty solid season with minor asterisks here and there, but nothing too heavy like we've had seen with other sports, which is good. We'll kind of get into that, but that's gonna pretty much do our show. But we do have one little last blurb that Dan's gonna kind of share for you guys, just as a little touch point for some NASCAR stuff that coming up this weekend.
Yeah, so this Sunday, Super Bowl of Racing, Daytona 500. Tonight they had the Clash that they ran on the Daytona road course, and then tomorrow you got Daytona 500 pole qualifying, followed by the Gatorade Duels on Thursday. So for anybody who isn't used to NASCAR, I'm a big NASCAR fan. I do e-racing, and I'm pretty pumped for the Daytona 500 this week. There's a lot of changes that have happened in this past year. You got a lot of drivers changing. You got the NASCAR champion Chase Elliott coming back to defend his championship.
Is that Bill Elliott's son?
Yes, it is. Yeah. Yep. So my dad was a big Bill Elliott fan, and so growing up we rooted for Bill, and then we rooted for Casey Kane, and then when Chase took over the 9, now I root for Chase. But I'm very excited, and one of the things that I'm just watching for the year is there has been a K-Tour can go somewhere with that. One of the things I'm excited about is there's a partnership with the Chevy teams this year, with getting some better engine power. In years past, they've been a little down, even though Chase won last year. So I'm excited to see that, and I'm going to make just this great big bold prediction that this is the year that that Chase gets it done and wins his first 500. So I'm excited for it. Sunday, 3:00, 3:05, they start, and I think it'll be a really, really fun event, and I'm excited about some racing, boys.
All right, so wait, Bill Elliott doesn't race anymore?
Dude, Bill would be
He's
like
70, right?
He'd be like,
65?
I think he's
All right, at least Jeff Gordon still races.
He's in the Fox booth now.
Listen, I will tell you this.
Man, it's been so long.
Listen, Trav, I will tell you this. I'm very excited. Yeah, I'm very
Dale
excited
Jr.?
to watch the no, he retired too. I'm really excited to watch the Intimidator. I saw a little promo for that. It's supposed to be a little special on Dale Sr., who was our dad's favorite racer, and
it's
kind of
20 years this year since Dale Sr.
The shame
died.
of that tragedy. I mean, obviously it was a tragedy, a terrible tragedy in of its own, but I really haven't been into racing since then.
Yeah, that's kind of when I stopped watching it. I tried to get into it a little with Dale Jr., but it just wasn't the same. And I think Dale Jr.'s career, in a sense, was almost never the same after he lost his dad. I think his passion kind of was gone to really really want to do
Dale
it.
Sr. dying, for me, is the single greatest tragedy in sports that I've ever seen. Like,
yeah,
I was so sick, and I was sick for days. And I mean, I remember I was like 15 and came home from like youth group or something, and my dad's like, "I gotta tell you something, Dale Sr. died." And I was just
I think Dad might have shed a tear. If I remember.
Oh,
correctly.
I'm like about to shed tears now because I just remember it.
Yeah.
So vividly.
It was just so sad, man. And it wasn't even like it was so sudden. It was so sad, and it was literally like and I guess in hindsight, it's he died doing what he loved, but like he it happened while he was in the middle of the race. If it had happened like, oh, he got in a car accident on the street, it wouldn't have been as
Yeah.
tragic almost in a sense. But that had happened, in the Daytona 500 and the way it went down. But
I just want to say hats off to NASCAR because since that happened, they've been reporting on this week. They haven't lost a driver in 20 years, and they've really come
John's
along with their
device.
safety advances. So, boogity, boogity, boogie. Let's go racing, boys.
Yep. So that's gonna pretty much do it for us. Look for maybe Dan to share some light on our Facebook page, possibly with a little video post the race. I think he might be on a little bit of a hype train
Yeah.
there. To just do his little breakdown of what he saw. But we will not be live next Tuesday. We're definitely going to take at least 1 week off, maybe 2 weeks off, probably. And then by then we'll have Aggie back for our shows as well. And we're going to talk a little bit more about looking into March Madness, which will start in the middle of March in a few weeks. Really excited about that. I know we like to get into our basketball talk. Although I will say that our three teams are not looking too hot.
I
None of our
watched
three
Kentucky
teams.
tonight. They suck.
None
so
of our three
bad.
teams are in the rankings for the first time in forever. But I think a lot of that has to do with COVID and players.
That'll
opting
make it
out
fun
and-
though. That'll make it fun. For
Yeah,
us.
it'll be good. It'll be good. We'll do a friendly little wager with our brackets as well. And then we look into obviously the draft and other things
Barnes
like
barbecue
that. But
chips, baby.
yeah, so just look for us to kind of be here and there, and we'll make sure we share something on social media to let you guys know when we will be live a few days ahead at minimum. But yeah, thanks for joining us this season. Thanks for sticking around. We've seen our viewership grow a little bit. If you want to watch or listen to any of our old stuff, you can find us on YouTube, Facebook, our website strictlysportspodcast.com, and you can listen to all of our podcasts on Apple and Spotify as well. So yeah, thanks for joining us, and we will see you guys in a few weeks. And have a good evening.